I'm using the tarot as a model, using the Holy Trinity of the planets Uranus, Neptune and Pluto as a model. They're not truth. There is no such thing as truth in this relative world that we live in. The absolute truth is the truth. Everything else is subjective. And I've used the idea of threeness to study groups of 3 tarot cards, and we're at a stage now where I'm discussing the 3 tarot cards that begin with the Tower, and now we're coming to the Star. And this is the path of awareness. There are 7 paths that I'm studying. And all of these things that I'm doing, the threeness and the sevenness, and the tarot itself, and astrology actually, and the outer planets, all of these esoteric symbols are as a roadmap, symbolically pointing in a given direction. But if I use a roadmap to get me somewhere, and when I get there I continue to look at the map and I discuss the journey as though it was lines on a bit of paper like a map, you would consider me very foolish indeed. And yet when people study the mysteries, they often do that. A lot of astrologers, really good astrologers, experienced astrologers, talk in astrobabble. They tell me all the transits that are going on, and the fixed stars and the asteroids and the conjunctions and the aspects between all of these things, and they've got the whole mental model really, really down. They've got it sorted. And I've asked the question then, what does it mean to you? And then they're lost. They can't translate it into meaning. What is meaning? What is meaning? Is it recorded in facts? Can you measure it? Probably not. That's called something else. That's called facts. What's meaning? Meaning surely must have a dimension in the feeling body. What we feel is closer to our sense of what is meaningful. It might have a philosophical context in the mind, but usually it's to do with feeling. And when we're discussing these 3 cards that are the path of awareness, we're trying to give meaning to our experiences of life. What is the meaning of life? What is spirituality? Who am I? These are philosophical questions that are only answered when we understand what meaning is. If we don't know what meaning is, we can't explain the meaning of things. And we got a real question to deal with in the path of awareness. The Tower, which is usually what we don't want in life, is the opportunity for freedom. And that's mostly frightening for people. Most people will not grasp the freedom that they're offered, and so they lose it. Use it or lose it. If you have freedom and you choose safety instead, then your opportunities for freedom are lost. So claiming freedom as an opportunity when disaster strikes, I'm being symbolic here. Your life is rent asunder by the Tower energy to give it an opportunity for the freedom that would otherwise not exist. In other words, we get caught up in our habits and the imprisonment of our beliefs, the limitation of our beliefs. The Tower breaks that open. In order that, and here we come to the Star, the second aspect of our study of awareness begins with freedom. The second aspect, evolution. The Star is an evolved condition of awareness. we reach a difficult point in our consciousness when it comes to this. And that is because the meaning of life goes well beyond the rational level. And we are taught by rationalists to understand that everything is measurable. This is the belief in science. Scientific materialism is a belief system as much as Christianity or Islam or Buddhism. It's a belief system. The scientific materialist believes that things are what they are and they're measurable and everything is the case or is not the case, and that is their belief system. Now this is in contradistinction to mystical understandings and our intuitive experiences. Everyone I've met, when I speak to them, has disclosed to me that they have had an event that is not explained by science. All of us, we have intuitions and coincidences and so on that science just can't explain. To some small extent, I think that now subatomic particle physics can explain some of these phenomena on that subatomic level, but not in the general world that we live in. So much of what we actually find gives meaning to life is not measurable, and therefore it must come down to a personal subjective opinion. When we are moving into the consciousness of the star energy, we have to suspend our disbelief, because it's an affirmation of the nature of reality at a level that most people cannot conceive of. They certainly can't perceive it. I didn't until I did. I was told about the light. I've seen the light, you know, and you see this acted out in films or whatever, has a bolt of light that comes from the sky and enters your third eye, and you've seen the light. Well, that's not what it means, I don't think. I saw the light, and it was just that everything is light. That what we look at as form, as hard, well-defined lines of form, physicality, that's not how it looks when you get into a certain level of consciousness, when you're in a certain state of awareness. You see that all of this is light, that bodies, physical bodies, my body is light, and I'm breathing in light, and I'm breathing out light, everyone is. It's just all light. And it's impossible to discuss with somebody who hasn't seen the light, because it's just so counterintuitive, and it's the exact opposite of what we see. But what we see is really false. It gives the idea that things are physical, and certainly when we interact with them, it seems like there's a huge amount of resistance that denies our being able to walk through walls, or the opposite, where we can't walk on water, you know. And for the most part, that's the truth of it. That's the illusion that people have co-created to such an extent that all of us have no choice but to buy into it, because that's how we were taught reality was when we were very young indeed. And so we can't easily change it. But eventually, if you do your spiritual practice with a passion for a long time, you get to see the light. And it's not only light, it's light upon light upon light. There's a magnificence to it. There's a sense of awe, and you can see why metaphors for light have to exist. It's just we don't have vocabulary. Our vocabulary arose out of a body of people that didn't know what light was. I don't really distinguish between the word energy and light. I think those two things can be seen as synonymous. I don't know what light would be if it isn't energy, or energy would be if it's not light. But the emphasis we put on the word energy takes it away from splendor and wonder and awe into something that can get the job done. If you've got energy, you have power to get the job done. Coal and electricity and so on, that's energy forms. That's not what we're talking about. So there is a difference, but light and energy might as well be considered synonymous for many purposes. It's just that it's wonderful. It's filled with wonder. And the metaphors that we use are things like light is love and beauty and excitement and those kind of things. There's this sense of sparkle and an elven quality, like the elves. The elvish sense of life is sparkling with beauty. That's where we go when we start to consider the metaphors for life. And this is the energy of the star. Now, even though we have not consciousness of the light, we do, through these media that I've just discussed with you, we experience it as joy, as excitement, as love, as beauty, and we experience it, and we often would give it a name of light, and that's not wrong, but it's just not the full picture. If you imagine seeing air in the light, if a ray of sunlight is going through the air and you can see the particles of dust in the air, you'll get a real sense of what light kind of looks like when it's moving from place to place. And there's this amorphous quality to it. It's not directed, not according to our ability to perceive it anyway. And there's this kind of it's a bit like the ocean, really, a bit like waves of water. That's like somewhere between waves of water and waves of air, something like that. That's how light is. I'm sorry I can't be clearer about my explanations. How we experience the star as a personal reality is when we are in some way aware that life is light and that we are light, and that if we're not aware of ourselves as light, then we're not alive. But when we're filled with the vitality of a new day, if we've got that enthusiasm to greet the day with privilege and gratitude and excitement and power and creativity, these kind of feelings that enable us to feel on top of the world, that's the light feeling. That's the star. And we can bring it into whatever, I bring it into music and my garden and so on. It's very difficult to bring it into human relationships unless you're actually in a group where the people all know that this is going on, and there's no hierarchy, and there's an awareness, it's a very high level of mastery. That this is why I'm focusing my attention on developing a masterclass of people that can hold that consciousness as we study the mysteries. Because otherwise, and I think we've all experienced this a lot, the mysteries are dumbed down. They're made to fit the rational mind, whereas the opposite purpose was meant. The mysteries are created so that they are not subject to rational understanding. You have to use your rational understanding to model it and to enter the study of the mysteries with the rational mind. You have to do that, otherwise there is confusion. But when you enter the mysteries, and it's like drawing aside a veil to enter the mysteries, in a sense, the secret garden perhaps. But this is what the high priestess is teaching us. drawing aside the veil to enter this world. Behind that veil is the star. The star is the unveiled, or the unveiling of the veiled. So those mysteries that were hinted at by the High Priestess are now revealed to us. And this is because we can see. And the reason that we can see what we could not see before is because we're no longer giving our attention to that which we used to. We used to give our attention to pain and suffering and difficulties and problems and those kind of heavy things, instead of joy and beauty and those kind of light things. And because of our attention being drawn towards the gross, that's what we see. Of course, seek and ye shall find. So we look at the problems, we see only problems, and we believe that reality is like that. But if you actually train yourself, and this training is your life path, this is what you do with your life. This isn't a weekend thing, a hobby. This isn't something you do later in life either. This is something you get on with straight away, because it's the most important thing of all. You train yourself to open up to the light. If you're a real seeker with passion, if you really want to know the truth according to your own subjective sense of it, then get on with it straight away. Study the mysteries, and study them profoundly, deeply, with as much time as you can possibly organize, and organize your life so that you have that time. Then you'll get eventually, I would imagine, closer and closer, and eventually get to see the light. And that validates everything, because everything else is false. It's just wrong. You know, we're living in a dream world, which is dreamt up by people who are troubled. Our reality is created communally, clearly, by people who are really frightened and pessimistic, generally speaking. Now, lovely to say this, we can choose our own sort of niche within that. And there are plenty of places that we can be where you can just live with full awareness of the light. The people in your life are light. You're living in nature. You have a job that you feel creatively excited to do. You live in light, and that's what we do. That's the star. The star is often used as a principle of guidance, like a compass, isn't it? And what we're finding here is that the compass of our life, the moral compass, is not really what we're talking about. The compass of our life is the spiritual compass. This is how we unfold spiritually. That's the star. And it is by noticing light, by perceiving light, by training ourselves to see only light, by knowing that we are only light, and we breathe only light. And if we actually don't want to see shadow or darkness or negativity, then we just choose not to. We choose to look for light. Even when we're staring at something that on the face of it is darkness, like a war or hunger. If you're actually at a certain level of spiritual attainment, when you see that, you'll see that within those things there's tremendous beauty. And you'll focus your attention on that beauty. And there's love, and there's harmony, and there's the glory of God, even in the dark places. And if you're, you're familiar with the stories that are told of the war times, people very often say that their lives were only meaningful at all, ever, during the war years. That's when they experienced the greatest light. We don't need a war to learn this lesson. We just need to understand that we're constantly given opportunities to affirm light. And sadly, because it makes us sad, we don't find the faith or the courage or the clarity to grasp the many opportunities we're offered to walk towards the light. the ticket you need, the price of admission to do this journey into the light, is faith. If you have faith, then you can walk into the light and know only light. And if you don't have faith, then you're afraid. And that isn't light. And so you can't see light and you don't believe it exists. So many people will think I'm talking absolute nonsense today because they don't get it. Some people will have seen what I see and they'll think, oh, great, yeah, he gets it the same way as I do. And there'll be others in the middle where intuitively, yeah, that must be true. That is true intuitively. Now, what do I have to do to experience that myself? Well, answer that question. What do you have to do to experience this for yourself? I rather suspect it includes moving away from the darkness, focusing your mind on the light, doing lots more spiritual practice, prioritizing your life journey not to making money, but to walking in faith, knowing that if you walk in faith, all that you need will come to you in a mystical way, not according to the rules of economics, but according to God's law, the law of light. And the law of light is that when you're in the light, that you know light. And light doesn't deliver hunger or war or hardship or fear. It's just not. It's not in that world. It's unsustainable in that world. So you simply have to have the faith to walk in light, to live in this world. And I would say this is the teachings of the star.